It is halfway through 2019, and this seems to be the year for budget flagships. I call them budget flagships because great companies like Asus, Honor, and OnePlus are taking flagship specs and putting them in budget phones. Now with the release of the Xiaomi Redmi K20 Pro, they have basically pulled a OnePlus on OnePlus. Check out the free review in a second.
Perfect.
Hi, welcome to TwoSplit. So I talked about budget flagships, and this is the one that has impressed me the most so far in 2019. So this is the Xiaomi Redmi K20 Pro, right? I was showing this off to my brother and he was like, Xiaomi, are they new? And I was like, really? They're only the 4th largest cell phone producers in the world, right? And he's like, yeah, whatever. And that's how a lot of people will look at this brand. But if you could just put the brand aside for a second and look at the sheer functionality and the specs and the hardware that goes into the device, you may be just as impressed as I am. So let's start with the external design. A good, comparison here would be the OnePlus 7 Pro, right? It looks just like it with the full 6.39-inch AMOLED screen. No cutouts, perfect screen, it looks beautiful. It doesn't have the same refresh rate, but this works perfectly well. And how did they manage to get a full screen? They put the periscope camera on top, just like the OnePlus 7 Pro. So if you look at the edge of this phone, it has aluminum casing, a curved Gorilla Glass all the way through to the back. The glass has a shimmering effect that's supposedly inspired by fire, right? Get it? Fire. If you look at the Redmi case, there's a little fire dragon. So I figured that's where they got it from. It has a triple camera setup just like the OnePlus. Again, I'm gonna use the OnePlus a lot because if you put this phone side by side without looking at the brand logos and all, you probably won't be able to tell them apart. The difference being in the price, and we'll get to that later. Price probably blow you away, same way it did me. The camera setup, like I said earlier, is the same. We'll talk about the specs in a minute on that. And there's a single firing speaker at the bottom. That might be a bummer for some of you. It sounds okay. You're not gonna get stereo off this. It's manageable. It has a USB-C at the bottom, SIM tray, a dual SIM tray, and yes, it does have a headphone jack. So come on guys, put the headphone jack back in. It's not that hard. Technology isn't that far gone. And this comes in 3 variants. So this is Glacier Blue. It comes in fiery red and a jet black color. And they all have the same shimmering effect depending on where you're standing in the light. The more light hits it, it becomes a little more polarizing or less polarizing depending on how it's refracting the light where you're standing. So on the inside, this thing is a beast. And I mean like a beast. We're talking about, as at the time this video is being made, this thing is rocking the latest Snapdragon 855 processor, an Adreno 640 graphics chip. It has 6 GB of RAM, an optional 128 GB of space. It has a 48 megapixel main sensor camera, a 13 megapixel ultra wide camera, an 8 megapixel telephoto lens. It has a 20 megapixel front facing camera, which is the periscope camera we talked about earlier. So, and the beautiful AMOLED screen houses an in-display optical sensor. That's pretty zippy. Not quite as fast as the OnePlus 7 Pro, but definitely faster than the S10. I know, right? Beef. But it is true. So now let's move on to my experience. Now with the software, MIUI 10, they've sort of refurbished it over the years into a cleaner, sort of pointing more towards Oxygen style skin over Android. So it's not too much bloatware, maybe 1 or 2 that you need to uninstall. But the gestures are probably some of the most intuitive I've tried on a cell phone in a long time. They've taken the great bits and pieces from Samsung and Apple and adapted their own thing. So basically, back is back. You swipe from the bottom up to go home. You pinch to go to the settings. It's buttery smooth and it just works. Okay, it just works, and I'm very surprised that it works that well. For the camera setup, the main 48 megapixel sensor does pretty well in decent lighting. Right, I notice it struggles a bit in low lighting, but I, in my personal opinion, I think this is more a software issue than the actual hardware is indicative of performing. Because in terms of hardware, it doesn't have a lower spec than what you would find on other flagships that are doing much better. So I think with a little software tweaking, it will probably get there. I think there is an update pending on this device. I haven't done it yet, so I may take more pictures after that. For the ultra wide lens, the ultra wide is probably even wider than the OnePlus 7 Pro. So when you check the width, it makes even near objects look way more distant. Although it does lose some details at the top fringes when you look at it. But other than that, it's pretty good. For the front-facing camera, it takes very decent selfie shots. Again, in decent lighting. I think there's a little bit of grain when you go into low lighting, but I still believe it's the software that needs a little bit of tweaking. The bokeh effects is decent when you go into light focus mode, and it has a trick that allows you to do like a front wide angle shot that lets you pan the camera from side to side and get a wider about 1 to 15 to 120 degrees view of range, which a lot of phones don't do. So I think it's a neat trick. It works pretty well. So I said I was going to talk about this price. This phone, when you convert the price to dollars, the one in my hand right now, comes to about $366. That is almost half the price of the OnePlus 7 Pro that's rocking almost the same specs, if not for the screen resolution that it has. OnePlus 7 Pro supports HD10 and the refresh rate is crazy, and it's crazy fast, higher RAM. But other than that, this is a major flagship phone for under 400 bucks. So you're probably wondering, yeah, so what's missing? Where's the price cut coming from? And I'll tell you. So first of all, there is no IP water resistance rating. So yeah, it's not waterproof. So you're not gonna go swimming with this guy, it'll die. There is no wireless charging. Even though it does have a glass back, you cannot wireless charge this. So they took that out, they had to save the cost somewhere. And it doesn't have expandable SD slot. So you're stuck with the size you have. So if you're super video buff or you take like 1 million videos and pictures, this may not be the one for you. But when I was discussing with friends and I brought up the first two about water resistance and wireless charging, and they were like, they have phones that do that now, but they don't normally, nobody plans to go swimming with their phone, except, well, some people go swimming with their phones. And people hardly actually use their wireless chargers, except maybe it's built into the nightstand. Let us know in the comments what you think. Are those features you can live or cannot live without? But if you keep in mind the cost of this phone, I think you can totally forgive those features missing. Oh yeah, one more thing, as a marketer, you have to also agree that the Xiaomi brand is not as strong as an Apple or a Samsung, so that brand equity is some cost that goes into the phone. But still, if you're a functional person and you understand the specs of the phone, this phone is beautiful, it does all that, it is zippy fast, it is buttery smooth, it's rocking the latest specs. So here's my take. This phone is worth sub $400. It is rocking a Snapdragon 855, an Adreno graphics chip 640, 128-bit storage, 6 gigabytes of RAM, and a 4,000 milliamp battery to power all that, which is bigger than most of the other flagship phones, by the way. This is a no-brainer. It's a sure win. And on the other hand, when a friend told me he was worried about after-sales service, I think Xiaomi is going on an African expansion. Off the top of my head, I know they opened a bunch of service centers, right, in Nigeria. So I think they have one in Lagos, they have in Abuja, they have in Abia, Kano, Kaduna, Kwara, Oyo. Yeah, and a couple more that I can't mention off the top of my head, but those locations definitely have Xiaomi support centers. So if anything happens to your phone, you can just take it back there. And to be honest, I probably fixed this phone 3 times over the cost of fixing one of those other flagship phones. Anyway, I digress. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Is this the phone for you? I think it looks beautiful. I didn't see myself saying that about the Xiaomi phone, but this phone has stood out in many aspects. It's performance-wise, it's beautiful, it feels good. It is a bit of a fingerprint magnet though, but which glass phone isn't, really? I will leave links in the comments for where you can find this to probably buy if you want to buy it. I'm not sure if there's a local store, but if there is, we'll find it, we'll put it in the description below. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Take care. It is halfway through 2019 and it's, oh no, did I say 2019? Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. That was good though, 2019. Is that even a year?